All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beginner to Master Competitive Azul Guide. Um, if you didn't watch the first video in the series, the idea is um, to create a new account. So I'm a relatively high level Azul player, and take this new account that I created and go all the way from beginner to master and record every single game along the way with commentary around the plays I'm making and potentially the mistakes that my opponents are making to help you kind of develop your Azul strategy and see if you're in the rating range that I'm playing in at the moment. Maybe you're making similar mistakes, and just kind of clarify some of the thinking and strategy around competitive Azul. So, as you can see, we're at 73 ELO. We played 2 games in the last episode, and we will go for another 2 or 3 games in this episode. And I did end up playing like a 193 in the last episode, so I think maybe I should not do average players. We'll see if we get a game. If not, we will open it up to a larger pool. And I think I will go ahead and do that now. We got someone. Okay, 87. Perfect. Okay, so one thing I do want to add to this episode. In the last episode, we didn't do any tile tracking. And that is something that I said I would talk about. However, I'm not seeing the notes. Is there an option to display notes? There is not. Okay, well, we will maybe not track tiles this round, but okay, so we have 2 blue, 4 yellow, 6 red, 5 black, and 3 white. And one thing we talked about in the first episode was focusing on the bottom rows a bit in round 1. So what I'm seeing here is a lot of red and black. So I'm actually going to try to spend some time building out this second column. So I'm going to start with 2 red on the bottom row. And I think this is a play that maybe a lot of beginners wouldn't make. We're kind of used to building from the top down. So hopefully this is instructive or at least interesting. You may not feel comfortable doing in your own games yet, but okay, so our opponent takes 2 black, so they are presumably building this middle column. And one thing that we can do that will help our board and hurt theirs is to take the 2 white that they want for row 4. And in doing so, if they decide to take this 1 white, which they don't, we would have ended up with 3 red for our bottom row. Now, I don't necessarily want to just take this 1 white myself, because it wouldn't surprise me if my opponent ended up taking like the 3 red for row 3. So I am just going to take the 2 red, and we will give them the opportunity to deal with this 1 white, which they don't do. So they seem intent on finishing this. row 5. So one advantage that we have um, is that we have at least the potential to complete our row 3. They can decide to stop us, but right now my opponent doesn't. So I'm actually going to take this 3 yellow for my row 2. And yeah, so they kind of predictably take that last black. We're going to take the white. So um, despite kind of saying that we're going to focus on these bottom rows, it's not necessarily that I want to finish them in round 1, but I do want to try to make progress. So this this row 3 white is going to be valuable for us when it comes to building up the top rows, getting some tile adjacency. Excuse me. Need to excuse my cough. Okay, so my opponent makes a very odd play of just 1 yellow on their row 2. So the play they should have made is, putting this on their row 1, and then they guarantee themselves one of these last groupings for their row 2. So I'm going to take the 2 red here for my top row. Gives us some adjacency scoring in this round, and kind of goes with one of the concepts I talked about in the last video, which is just investing in the tiles that we need the most of. So in this case, we already have 4 of these red, so we're doing great, but we do need 5 reds, and then 2 reds, and then 1 red. So whereas, the other option was blue, and maybe we need 6 blue for the whole game for the top 3 rows. So just securing some red along the way. Okay, so also worth noting, our opponent didn't play on row 1, which is actually fine given the situation they were in. We're either gonna, I think it's better to fill row 1 than to not, but they're really focused on building this column. So this is a good opportunity to talk about kind of when and how to defend. So we have a situation where we can't stop our opponent from getting row 4 white. So the only reason to try to defend this is if we can get something out of the group in the middle that would result from us taking 2 white, which in this case, there's not really anything for us there. We would create a group of 3 black, which is good for us, but we're going to end up playing kind of some odd tiles. We would probably play this 2 white on row 2, which to be honest isn't the worst for us because our opponent's going to take one of these blue for their row 3, and then we're going to be stuck needing 2 red for our row 2 adjacency, and I'm sure they're going to take 1 red. So our row 2 actually doesn't look great. This is a surprisingly interesting choice, actually. Okay, let's do something interesting. So I'm going to take 2 black for my row 4. And the idea here is that if they take the 2 white from this upper factory, that will give me the 2 red I want on row 2. And if they take the 2 white, from this factory, so now we have an opportunity to put them in a sticky situation. So we also have the opportunity to just take these 2 black, which is good for us. But my opponent is not really going to be able to stop us from getting black eventually anyway. So what I'm going to do is take, I think, this black for my top row. And what this does is it puts all of the yellows in the middle and all of the blues in the middle. So for them to complete these 2 rows, they're going to have to, like for the yellows alone, for example, they'd be taking 2 tiles of overflow and the first player token. So they took the blues, which is fine. So I'm going to take these 2 red. They take 1 red. Okay, and then we're in a great situation here. We're actually going to take these 3 yellow, and my opponent can't take 3 black for their bottom row. So they will either take a bunch of negatives, and then I will take -2 to their additional -6, or they will take these 2 white, and we will complete our row 4 black. Now, I didn't finish my row 5 red. Is that a big deal to me? Not really, to be honest. I would rather have this maintain my high scoring top rows, and it's actually better to complete your row 4 before you complete your row 5 so that you get more adjacency bonuses as you build your row 5. So we're not in a rush to finish out that bottom row. I know you might not like leaving rows unfinished, but it was for the greater good, and we are up 12-3, so we already have a nice lead based on our play last round. And our opponent is still stuck on their first tile in the second row. So they still have not completed a second row tile. And I think we're going to continue to make that a little bit hard for them by... So taking this 1 yellow for our top row is okay. Gives us... Would I like to abandon this game? I don't want to abandon the game. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Yes, so taking the 1 yellow does give our opponent the opportunity to put all 3 reds in the middle and make it costly for us to complete our row 5. So I think we'll just finish out our row 5. We're fairly flexible in other parts of the board. I feel a little bad that my opponent wants to abandon the game, but I would like to play it. So for adjacency on row 2, we have blues and blacks. We're going to have a probably fine time getting either. I don't know the tile counts. I've been playing this game a little bit faster, and given that my opponent wants to abandon it, I might continue to do that. But I think we should feel pretty good here about just securing points with blue. Okay, and here's a situation in which we can take 2 black and know that we will be able to get either of the other ones. The only thing to be careful of is that we don't want to lose our row 1 options. So I don't want to play like 2 yellow on row 1 and put 3 black in the middle. My opponent will just take it. So let's just take this top row white. And we'll give our opponent the option. Okay, so they're playing on row 4, which is interesting. I am probably not going to really actively defend that. I don't have great other plays. 2 yellow for my row 4 comes to mind. Then if they take 2 yellow, we take 2 black, and we're left with blue or red for our middle row. So yeah, that's not terrible. We can go for this. If my opponent plays like they have been playing, they will probably just take 1 black here. That's kind of been how they've been operating. Yeah, so I don't want to be cruel to the person who wants to abandon the game. So let's actually just take the 2 yellow. Can let them have their 1 black. And one of the reasons that we can do this that's beneficial for us is now we can take 2 blue, and they can't play this 2 red on their top row. So they're not going to finish row 1 or row 3. So we gave them 2 points for that black, but it's hardly a big deal. Okay, so tons of blue this round. We have some options for our second row. There's 2 white and 3 black, so either of those will work. One thing when you're thinking about going into the last round, it is nice to have the last player token or the first player token heading into the last round. So sometimes you can find opportunities to pick something that like make a play that puts that such that the middle tile is one that your opponent doesn't want. But unfortunately, we don't really have that opportunity here. So like if we take 2 white, they'll probably just take 2 blue, which is good for them. If we take 1 blue, they'll take 1 red. Same thing if we take 3 black, they'll take 1 red. So I have a 13-point lead. I'm not looking to do anything too crazy here. Just going to take these 2 white and secure my row 2. Okay. Let us let's just take these 2 blue. Gives us first player in the last round. If I'm being honest, this is kind of a weird game. The opponent's building in a way that I don't have to make many decisions, really. But maybe this is an important point. Like if you have a 13-point lead and your opponent is doing kind of random things like building row 3 red or row 5 blue, you don't need to rush to defend those, right? Like I could have taken the blues away from my opponent, but the reality is, what do I care if they score 3 points? So in these situations, just play solid, take your points, try to avoid situations where you end up in big negatives. We're going to take these 2 yellow. We can create the threat of the full color. And this is something that I doubt will come up in this specific game. But creating threats heading into the last round is very powerful. It forces your opponent to make certain moves, and we'll see kind of what the tile layout is next round, and we can kind of maybe pretend that the situation is different than it is. I don't know the count of blues. We can quickly kind of try to count. So 5, 6, 7, 12, 15. So given that there's 15 blues on the board already, and potentially some got thrown out, I don't want to take this 1 blue here. I will need 3 more and then 4 more for my top row, or a 4th for my top row. And there's at most 5 left, so that's pretty dicey. I could play this red. We can count the reds. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 13. So in theory, there's plenty of reds left for me to potentially fill this fourth row. But like I said, we have a big lead. We don't need to put ourselves in a situation where we could end up like with minus 14 in the next round and accidentally lose a game that we shouldn't have. So we're happy to just take -2 and not put ourselves at risk. Okay, so nothing special here. We're going to take this one blue to trigger the end of the game. I think our opponent will be happy to see that. Okay, so they placed the 3 blue there. Let's take our color bonus yellow. Why not? Okay, they take 2 red. I'm going to, excuse me, also take 2 red, and in doing so, group these 2 black together. So we'll see if my opponent defends it and takes those black for their row 1. They don't. They choose to take the whites, so we'll just take the blacks. Okay, we'll take these reds, and that's the end of the game. Unfortunately, I think this game was maybe a little bit too, maybe our opponent didn't even know the game was ending. These 2 yellows should have gone on the top row. This game was maybe a little bit too uncompetitive, but it does kind of illustrate that when you're in a situation like this, just keep it simple, take your points. You don't need to defend everything that your opponent's doing if you have a huge lead. Okay, so we'll jump right into a second game, and now we will restrict this to average players. I'm still curious about why I didn't have the option to take notes in that game. If anyone watching knows, feel free to leave a comment. And while we're waiting, I should say, please feel free to leave comments on the video with any questions or comments that you might have. I'm not making these videos to monetize or anything, so I'm not gonna, you don't have to like, you don't have to subscribe, but I am interested in improving people's Azul, so please feel free to ask questions. Okay, so into the new game, we have 4 red, 4 blue, 2 yellow, 3 red, 3 black, and 2, 4, 6, 8 white. So tons of white. Our opponent has kind of already claimed this middle column. And I think I'm going to combat them on the bottom rows at least. So, I mean, this is a strong play for a lot of reasons. We're getting the first player tile into round 2, which is something I like. I think round 2 is, because people generally have their bottom rows open in round 2, it can be very powerful to be able to defend in round 2 with the first player tile. So I don't always take it, but round 2 is one of the rounds where I do think it's worth it. So let's just finish out this row 4. And we're going to have to be kind of flexible with our top rows. And you'll probably see a situation here in which I enter round 2 without much of a cohesive column. Okay. So opponent takes 2 red, which is interesting. At this point, like, I'm giving up on row 3. We're not going to be able to build row 3. The only way we would do that is with 3 blacks, and most likely our opponent's not going to let that happen. So let's continue to develop our bottom rows while also putting the 2 yellow in the middle. And because our opponent played 2 reds, the only way for them to defend the yellows would be on their top row, and we still would have been able to take fill our row 2 even if they had taken the 2 yellows. So I'm going to take the 2 blue here to prevent them from finishing row 3. Now, actually, I think I might change my mind. So the reason to take 2 white is because there were 8 white in this round, we should expect a low white tile count next round. And we have the first player token, so we should be able to easily defend that. So this is going to look pretty wonky when it's all said and done. And we're going to end up building from the side a little bit. Actually, we're not going to end up building from the side a little bit. So I was expecting them to take the 2 black for their row 5, which in hindsight I should not have expected. Should have expected them to just finish out their row 3. But so we're going to take the black for our row 1 to defend against this row 5 black. And let's see if we see one of the, yeah, so this is one of the biggest mistakes you can make, in my opinion, in round 1 that can potentially just straight up lose you the game, which is having your row 4 and your row 5 aligned to different columns. And the reason this is so tough, and we'll probably see it play out in this game, is just that it's going to be very hard for my opponent to build a column in the end. So you might look at my board and say, man, this is totally wonky. And it is, but we'll see how this specific situation hinders my opponent. And the reason this is such a big mistake is because it is fine to take negatives in round 1. So my opponent could have thrown these 2 yellows away and they would be down 1-0. So you should never feel pressure in round 1 to play tiles on your last turn if they don't fit your board. It's totally fine to throw away tiles in round 1. So okay, so my opponent needs 2 white for their row 4. We're going to go ahead and prevent that, and we're going to play these on row 1. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to play them on row 3. We might be able to get like 3 yellow. Unlikely, given that my opponent is going to take 2 yellow. But we have opportunities for 3 red, 3 blue, not 3 black. We're going to be focusing those on row 5. But yeah, we'll make a defensive play. It continues our top row adjacency, which is okay. Okay, opponent takes the 2 yellow as expected. So let's see here. We have a number of options. We can take these 2 blue for our row 3. Our opponent would have to defend that. Perhaps a slightly sneakier play would be to put this yellow in the middle. Now, if my opponent were to play them on row 2, that would be pretty good for them. And it's quite strong to have the first player tile and fill this 5-point row 2. if they do that, I will be able to finish my row 5. And again, the reason that even if I give them this row 2 yellow, which is really strong, then they're going into next round still stuck with this combination of 2 white and 4 yellow. So let's see how this plays out. This will, if they go into round 3 with both of these rows still unfinished, they're in fairly big trouble. So, okay. So now, what else can my opponent do? They can't play the blues, really. So we can try to create a situation of, grouping these 3 blues together. They can play 3 red. It's not terrific for them, but it's not bad either. So let's go with this blue plan. Again, just like the last game, like I'm happy to make progress on my row 5, but I'm not dying to complete it. So I'm going to secure my row 2 with red and try to get these 3 blue. And, by the end of this round, it's likely that our opponent will be ahead of us in points. Okay, so they choose to defend in a very interesting way, which is to take 2 black. So I'm going to go ahead and take this 1 black. This is a pretty good situation for us, honestly. We secure a row 3 no matter what. We will get the 3 blue or the 3 red. And we will prevent our opponent from this row 3 black. And then they play the white here, so this puts them in a sticky situation because when I take blue, they're not going to be able to play these reds. So I think this black play that they made would fall into the category of unnecessary defending, right? Like, they're ending up with 3 open rows, -6. They didn't fill their top row, all to prevent me from getting this row that I'm going to get in this following round anyway, right? So they've delayed me 1 round, but that's not super strong for them. Now, you might be saying, well, you delayed them, you made these plays to delay them, but delaying them is much stronger because these are not building a column, right? So if they want a column by the end of the game, they have to fill these out and then fill out another row 4 or row 5 on top of that, which is going to be very difficult. Okay, looking at this round, so let's see. We've got 4 blue, 4 red, 3 yellow. They just took 1 black, so there were 5 black, and there are 4 white. And I have done a terrible job of keeping track of tiles, so I apologize that I haven't been referencing the total number of tiles left. But not gonna play a huge role in this game, I don't think. So let's see. Ideally, we would get 2 yellow. 2 black's not terrible for us. Let's actually take this 2 black, and by grouping these 2 yellow in the middle, I'm putting some pressure on my opponent to like deal with their yellow right now. So if they, for example, make this play of taking 2 blue, I'll take this single red. Okay, they don't make that play. So once again, so now they're really stuck, right? Because I'm going to take these 3 yellows for my row 3, and they're not going to complete this row 5 yellow. And again, this matters. This row 5 yellow matters more than my row 5 black because they need a row 5 black at the end of all of this to build a column. Whereas I can just complete my column and be happy and probably, not build anything on row 5 anymore. Okay, so we're just going to take red here for our top row. And presumably they will take one black. And if they do, when we take our black, they'll get stuck with the 3 whites at the end. Yep. So we'll take a black. And yeah, they're going to be taking a lot of negatives, so they'll take the one blue here, presumably. So if this were a particularly close game, then I would play these 2 reds. If the score was 15-15 and they had a column built already, then this -4 would worry me. But because of the situation we're in, where we have a big lead, I'm just going to throw those away. And our opponent's throwing away a bunch of tiles too, so we're still going to come out, pretty far ahead here. Yeah, so we're up by 10 points. Okay, so some interesting things in this round maybe, but we're still just going to keep it pretty simple. However, maybe this brings up a subject I was talking about last game, which is, let's say I want to take 2 yellow for my row 2, which I'm going to do. Which one of these piles makes more sense? And if I think about, wanting the first player token in the next round, if I take these 2 yellow and put a red and a black in the middle, there's not really anything my opponent wants a red or a black for. So most likely they won't take it. If I take these other 2 yellow and put a red and a blue in the middle, maybe my opponent says, you know what, I'm happy to take the blue for my row 1 and I'll get first player in the last round. So I'm going to take the 2 yellow that put the red and the black in the middle. And then depending on what my opponent does, we should have a pretty good option for securing the first player token. And in this case, I'm going to do these 2 red on row 3. So we have plenty of opportunity to finish those. So this secures the first player token, gives us a nice point scoring row 3. Our row 1 is not in jeopardy. So sometimes you have a choice between tiles. You always have a choice between tiles, but let's say you're wondering like, oh, what do I take here? Like 1 yellow for my row 1 or 1 red for my row 3? And one way you can think about it is like, if I take this yellow and then my opponent takes this yellow, then there's 2 reds in the middle. And like, I could take the 2 reds, but maybe I'm kind of forced to take this 1 red. And there's not really any defensive plays I want to make. Well, yeah, by taking this 1 red, by taking this 1 yellow, we maintain some flexibility. We're going to have, I said some things backwards and I apologize. Because there's 2 reds on the factories, we're going to have an option for 1 red no matter what. But had we left that yellow in there, our opponent could have made a play to, group these yellows together, or kind of force the situation a little bit more. Maybe this was a bad example. I'm kind of trying to force some strategy into games where we don't necessarily need it, just for the sake of, giving you guys some content. But this is another game where, we're going to be very comfortable heading into the last round. And our plays in this round should just be safe, keep our 10-point lead or more. We've got some good opportunities here with maybe getting these blues on row 4. We can score big on row 4 next round. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Yeah, so an interesting play from our opponent, opting, instead of completing their row 5, to build on this row 3. And I don't particularly see a reason to stop that right away. What I am going to do is make sure that they get the last tiles by taking this red. And if they don't take the yellow this turn, then I will take it. But if they do take it, honestly, I'll probably grab those blues. So this is, you might say, oh, you want to stick your opponent with these negatives at the end, but they can play them on row 4 also for a potential 6-point play next round. So we want that 6-point play. So we're going to take them. Now, this is a situation where if I were tile counting, I would be aware of the fact that I do also need 3 blues for my top 2 rows. And depending on how many blues are left, if there's fewer than 4 blues, then I've just created trouble for myself. Similarly, let's actually see how many whites there are left. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14. So there's actually a shot for a second column here, and we could play it safe, but let's see if we can talk about some round 5 kind of tile manipulation strategy, even though we don't necessarily need it. Okay, so, well, there's not enough whites left, so it doesn't matter anyway. Let's just secure our excuse me, row 2 blue here. Yeah, let's just do row 1 actually. Okay, so now we can take our other blue here, and you'll see that our opponent is building this column, so they will get it actually if I take this one blue. So let's make a defensive play first. Take this one white. Always be on your toes. Even with a big lead, I almost got lazy there and just gave them a column for no reason. So, okay, so now we'll take this one blue, finish this out, and we're prioritizing that because there's 2 factories with 2 blue, so we can be guaranteed to get our row 2 blue. And our opponent is even doing us the favor of letting us dump 4 blacks on their trash line at the end. Okay, so this is just about minimizing negatives. So we just take the one red. We can't play anything other than those blacks. And we'll probably actually take those. So the math on that will work in our favor. We're going to score 3 points from them. So I said we'd dump blacks on our opponent, but actually we're going to dump yellows on our opponent. All right. So we win by quite a hefty margin. And again, from a strategic perspective, nothing too crazy in this game, but you know, in a way, like this can highlight the simplicity of Azul. Um, if you focus on kind of building points in a um, even straightforward way, um, that's good enough to win at these levels. So all we're doing is looking for tile adjacency, filling out our column, um, and that's about it. So I'm wondering if the notes are only in turn-based games, and that's why we're not seeing them. So I'm going to do something in this game. I'm not actually going to chat, but I'm going to keep track of the tiles. So the way I like to do it is just look at the top row and go across. So there's 5 blue on the board. That means there's 15 blue left. We have 2 yellow. So there's 18 yellows. We've got 15 reds left, 16 blacks, and 16 whites. So we're just going to keep that in chat. It'll probably tell my opponent that I'm typing. And that'll be a little odd, but okay, so our opponent takes the 2 white. Maybe they're trying to build column 2. Now, there's not a great play for me to defend. Like if I take 2 blue, then they get 3 red for their row 5. Conversely, if I take 3 red, they get 2 blue for their row 2. If I take 2 black, they get to just fill their row 3 with the first player tile. So I've talked about this before, but this board's fairly flexible. We could end up with kind of 3 blue, or we could really end up building any of the middle 3 columns. So what I'm going to prioritize is just capturing the first player token and having this nice centralized row 1 red. And now we will react to whatever second play our opponent makes. Okay, so they are playing very well. Let's see. So 500 Azul games. So they've got some experience. Now, I can't prevent their whites. I can try to force their hand a little bit, perhaps, by putting the 2 whites together. I could also go for like defending the row 5. I'm taking some reds here and put 3 blues in the middle. I would assume they would take those blues, which I wouldn't particularly love. This is actually a little bit of a tricky situation. Maybe all right, I'm going to play 1 blue here. It's going to look weird, but I'm kind of setting myself up for this 2 yellow, and they of course can take the 2 yellow if they want. They chose not to. So I am going to take it. Now they've got the option of taking these 2 blues and trying to prevent me from finishing my row 3. But I'm going to do something kind of sneaky here and actually take these reds from them. And I'm, in a way pivoting the column that I'm building to the second column. And I think I'm happy to take the 2 blue so that I'm not stuck with my row 3 next round. I will give them the row 4 black, but I'll also get this red tile. So things are not bad for us. And you can see, like, in the past games, when I had the first play, I would make a play for my bottom rows. But in the games where I'm the second player, I tend to play a little more reactive to what my opponent's doing, and try to kind of work out the best way to end up with some bottom row investment while also, ensuring that I have the first two rows complete and row 3 as a bonus. So my opponent taking some time to think about this, which is interesting. I don't know if they were debating not taking the black because they didn't want to have the one white way over here. But having that's not too bad, to be honest. So it was actually a very high scoring round 1, 5-7. Okay, so now we're going to come adjust our tile counts. So with with blue, we go down to 11. With yellow, 2, 4, 6, 7, we also go down to 11. Red was 15, we go to 13. And black goes to 12, and white goes to 13. And if you're asking how I know this, so there are 20 of each color, and in a 5-round game, which most of your games are, that means that you will go through every single tile because we end up with 20 tiles on the board. So five colors, 20 tiles each. 5 rounds, 20 tiles each. So you see every tile. So that's how you can definitively know how many tiles are left in the bag. Okay, so this is pretty evenly spread across the board, so I'm not too worried about this in round 2. And let's talk about our goals here. So we do want to get one of these reds, of course. It would be nice to maybe get like row 3 yellow, given that all these yellows are out here. We're probably aiming for row 2 blue. We're not going to get row 2 red, most likely. So row 2 blue looks pretty good, and I actually want to secure this right now because my opponent could make a play for row 3 blue. So even though I'm going to give them the first player token most likely and 2 yellows, securing this row 2 blue is going to be important for us. And I was talking about row 3 yellows, but ideally we get row 3 white, and we'll see if we can try to make that happen. I'm kind of assuming that that might be difficult. And of course, we're looking for, row 4 black. And it'll be interesting to see if my opponent tries to aggressively defend any of what I need. There's not a lot of defending for me to do in this round, because there's like no red here, and they've completed, more or less the rest of this column. So I'm, primarily playing for my own board right now and not to harm my opponent's board. Now, as the round progresses and more tiles get placed, there will be opportunities for defending, but based on the kind of start of the round, and you saw it with this 2 blue play, like I am primarily concerned with myself, since there's nothing obvious to defend from my opponent. And again, my opponent taking quite a bit of time. Possible that they are having connection issues, or yeah, I'm gonna guess that they're having some connection issues. And this would be an unfortunate end to the video. All right. Let us skip and let's just abandon this game. We won't take the ELO from our opponent. We would only get 20% anyway. So if they're having, oh, I accidentally switched it to turn-based. And look at that. There's the notes. Let's see. So I'll propose to abandon. We'll see if they choose to. But that'll be it for this video. Unfortunately, two relatively uncompetitive games, and then a game that is ending with my opponent timing out. So as we climb, the games will get more competitive and things will get more interesting. I hope that there was still something to learn here. I know that I played a little bit faster, a little bit looser, just because of the circumstances of the game. So I probably could have done a better job of still talking about different options. So I'll keep that in mind for next time. I am learning how to best do this as I go. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time.